Welcome to meeting number 123 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women. I would like to remind all members of the following points. Please wait until I recognize your name prior to speaking, and a reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Merci à tous pour votre coopération.
Thank you all for your cooperation.
1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, November 27, 2023. The committee is continuing with its study of coercive behavior. Before we welcome all of our witnesses, I would like to provide a trigger warning. We will be discussing experiences related to violence and coercive control. This may be triggering to viewers with similar experiences. If you feel distressed or need help, please advise the clerk. For all witnesses and for members of Parliament, it is important that we recognize that these are difficult situations, difficult discussions, so let's try and be as compassionate as we can be for all. At this point, I would like to welcome our witnesses. For today's panel are by video conference. We have two witnesses appearing anonymously. And in the room, we have from Humane Canada, Carrie Thompson, Manager, Justice and Legislative Affairs. Okay, and in addition, by video conference, we have Camille Dillon, author and speaker. So at this point, I would like to begin with Carrie Thompson. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and honorable members. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today. Humane Canada is the Federation of Humane Societies and SPCAs, with members in 10 provinces and 2 territories, whom Canadians depend on to care for abused and abandoned animals, advocate for greater protections, and provide resources to their communities. We're also the founders of the Canadian Violence Link Coalition, which brings together multi-sector stakeholders to explore the connection between animal abuse and human violence, known as the Violence Link, that often manifests to intimate partner and family violence. I'm here today to advocate for survivors of violence and their animals. More than 60% of Canadian homes have a companion animal, with 70% of those identifying their animal as family. When there is violence in the home or a relationship, not only is the human victim vulnerable, but also the animal, who can be used as a very effective tool of coercion and control. From our work with survivors with animals, as well as law enforcement, family lawyers, and prosecutors, we are aware of how common this link is. However, it often goes unrecognized by enforcement and in the courts, even where animal cruelty charges are laid. This is especially true where an abuser engages in nonviolent forms of abuse, such as in a 2018 Canadian survey, 89% of violence survivors reported animal abuse by their partner. A later study of survivors highlighted some specific actions, with 65% reporting threats to get rid of the pet, 60% reporting intimidating or scaring the pet, but only 20% reported the actual injury of a pet, and 14% reported a pet being killed. These statistics indicate that abusers are more likely to engage in less obvious forms of abuse, leaving victims unsure of whether to report to police because it's unclear if a crime has been committed. A few stories from our network and research shows the range of ways animals can be used as coercive control. A survivor left an abusive situation, but her abuser refused to let her take her dog. A week later, he brought the dog to meet her, but only allowed her to spend time with the dog if she complied with some of the things he wanted. Even after leaving, he was continuing to control her through the dog. Our family law research study last year revealed similar situations, or situations where the pet was not just removed without the victim's knowledge or consent, and with no indication of where they'd been taken. In an Ontario dangerous offender application in 2022, the offender's history of violent behavior spanned 20 years, with a demonstrated pattern of violence toward multiple intimate partners. During one such incident, he was jealous that his former partner's phone kept ringing. He wanted to have sex later, and when she refused, he became irate, accused her of cheating on him, and began smashing things before throwing her cat off of the 11th floor balcony. He then blocked her from leaving when she tried to run outside after her animal. According to a January 11th article in the Ottawa Citizen of this year, an offender was arrested for arranging the sexual abuse of 4 dogs and the extortion of a young man with autism he was grooming as a minor into having a sexual relationship. An investigation revealed that the offender had coerced his impaired victim to take a photo engaging in sex acts with a dog that he then used to extort sexual favors from him, threatening to send the image to the victim's family and friends, as well as police. While legislation would be useful to clearly identify that these indeed are criminal acts involving coercive control, we also need to train all justice systems personnel, from law enforcement through to judges, to understand animal abuse as a significant contributing factor in situations involving intimate partner violence and family violence. This would not only add clarity for justice stakeholders, but also for victims and survivors. In closing, the committee recognized cruelty toward animals as an early indicator of intimate partner violence and abusers that use pets as a way to threaten their partners in its study of intimate partner and family violence in Canada. Likewise, we urge you to consider animal mistreatment as a tool of coercive behavior here. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I would welcome by video conference witness number 1. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Non-preferred or unsafe parents who utilize parental alienation or PA as a legal strategy will be victorious at the criminalization of coercive control, as it will allow them to take their post-separation abuse even further. I support the government's initiative to criminalize coercive control if the use of parental alienation and its related pseudo-concepts and remedies are prohibited in family court. Otherwise, those who the new law is meant to protect will be at even greater risk. Family court labeled me an exemplary mother and as someone who engaged in coercive control and parental alienation. Prior to family court, I had never heard of PA. Little did I know that my children and I would become victims as what is referred to as the alienation industry. In the spring of 2022, I received a judgment that ordered a transfer of the care from the children from myself to their father within 48 hours, a no contact order between the children, myself, my family, and friends. The no contact order stipulated no direct or indirect contact with the children for 90 days, and that if such contact did occur, the 90-day period would start over. The children were devastated by this news. Prior to this order, they spent 15 hours a week of court-ordered parenting time in their father's care, and they had not had an overnight visit in almost 3 years. At this time, the children were 12 and 14 years of age. At no time was the no contact order breached. However, it took over 500 days until I was reunited with my daughter, and it has now been over 900 days since I've had any contact with my son. In addition, the judgment ordered that the children travel to the United States to attend what is referred to as a reunification camp with their father. The program is 4 days in length at a sole cost to myself of $15,000 US. Please note that our family is Canadian and we have no ties to the US. My children are not the first to be ordered to the United States for reunification therapy as a remedy for PA. This has been happening since at least 2008. The judgment further stated that once the children returned from the US, that they would engage in what's referred to as aftercare with a therapist approved by the facilitator of the American reunification camp. In less than 6 months, an additional $18,000, this time in Canadian funds, was paid, and I was responsible for half. It is notable that prior to this judgment, our family had already been court-ordered to participate in what is referred to as outpatient reunification therapy, a Section 30 assessment, a clinical intake consultation for a combined total of approximately $50,000. As identified at last week's committee meeting, parental alienation is a lucrative endeavor for lawyers and court-ordered clinicians. A review of case law will demonstrate that it is the same lawyers, psychologists, and social workers, case after case, who advance the narrative of parental alienation in family court. The label of parental alienation in family court actually results in a non-preferred or unsafe parent being judicially empowered to further engage in coercive control. For example, my co-parent was granted an order that I had to provide him with 24 hours notice when I'd be physically present at work because of its proximity to my daughter's school, a school she was no longer attending. The judge herself brought forth the idea that I should be required to walk to work or park in a specific location. Financially, I spent several $100,000 to try and protect my children. The end result was that I was erased from my daughter's life over 500 days, and I continued to be erased from my son's life. Additionally, I also have a cost awards against me for over $500,000 payable to my children's father because he is considered the successful party in family court based on PA. Throughout my speech today, I've used the term non-preferred and unsafe parent rather than mother and father. The use of parental alienation as a legal strategy does statistically affect more mothers. However, fathers are also at risk and therefore children as a whole. A review of Ontario case law will show that an educational assistant, a university lacrosse coach, and a Toronto fire chief are all fathers who lost their children via this legal strategy. Professionally, I spent 10 years working in pediatric rehab. We utilized techniques based on best practice and research. Each client goal had aligned objectives, and we used a goal attainment scale. Reunification therapy uses indices of success, such as the child demonstrates expression of love, understands how distorted memories or perceptions can occur, or in my case, when my daughter could envision her father walking her down the aisle at her wedding. 6 American states have signed into law legislation that aligns with the recommendations of the UN. As these laws are passed state by state, Canada will become a larger target market of the alienation industry than it already is. One American therapist has made it publicly known that she has already relocated to British Columbia. In conclusion, I recommend that this committee advance the criminalization of coercive control in tandem with the recommendations of the UN and NAL, such that the use of parental alienation and its related concepts and remedies are prohibited in family court because those who are labeled an alienator are also labeled as someone who is engaged in coercive control. The use of parental alienation as a legal strategy results in judicially empowered coercive control by the non-preferred parent and the clinicians involved with the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well, Witness 1, for your testimony. Witness 2, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share my story. I'm a 17-year-old survivor of the family court system who was judicially trafficked to the United States for unification therapy because my father claimed parental alienation. I am the daughter of Witness 1. In 2022, my brother, my father, and I traveled to New York to attend what is known as a reunification camp. It was facilitated by a social worker who I worked with. For 4 days, we went to the personal apartment of Mary. During this time, we were told that our negative memories of our father were false. We watched the movie Welcome Back to Pluto, a movie about parental alienation. We watched a video summary of the controversy.
Witness 2, I'm just going to have you pause for a moment for translation. I need you to try and slow down a little bit and speak into the mic as best as you can, just for the translation. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. We watched a video summary of the controversial study about false memories called Lost in the Mall. We watched episodes of the show Brain Games that tried to convince us further that our memories were incorrect, such as false memory and misinformation demonstration, and Remember This. We were told that our mother was the abusive one, and the sessions were all video recorded. In the afternoons, we visited local attractions. During these outings, we were coerced into cooperation. A specific example was in the Empire State Building when Mary yelled at me for not smiling in a photo. I was told that if I did not smile, the no contact order with my mom would be tripled. About a month after we returned from New York, we began attending what is referred to as aftercare with a Canadian social worker who I will refer to as Kevin. Kevin's framework and methodology was simply an extension of what we had experienced in New York. With Kevin, we watched videos of controversial experiments that would not meet the ethical standards and best practices of today. For example, we watched Jane Elliott's Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise, Tronic's Still Face paradigm, Harry Harlow's The Monkey Mother experiment, and then Kevin even tried to encourage us to be physically affectionate with our father based on the work of Harry Harlow. Kevin also utilized threats and bargaining in our therapy sessions. His indicators of therapeutic success included us telling our father that we loved him, initiating and accepting physical affection from our father, and addressing him as dad. With regards to schooling, it is important to share the following. On return from New York, my brother missed 3 weeks of school, and I was not permitted to return to in-person school that year. I was forced to complete my grade 9 year virtually. In the fall of 2022, my father registered my brother and I at schools in his neighborhood. My brother was devastated by this decision as he would have been entering grade 7 with all of his friends since junior kindergarten. I was simply excited to be returning to in-person school. I was not permitted to have a cell phone. My father said that if I made new friends, they could call me at his number. I was not permitted to have a Chromebook that belonged to the school board. Rather, my father purchased me a Chromebook and he installed the app Custodio on it to monitor my every move. Now that I was out of the house for the first time since April, I knew that I had to advocate for my rights. I reached out to an organization for youth, and a lawyer there was able to assist me with obtaining a judicial interview. After my father learned that I had been in contact with this organization, I was threatened that my friends would be called to the guidance office and questioned, that my friends would have to provide their phone records, and that school security footage would be obtained. My father also started coming to the school at lunch and having me paged to the office. On one occasion, he had the principal come find me. He made me leave with him for the duration of the lunch breaks. After the Christmas holidays that year, I was not permitted to return to in-person school yet again. I was enrolled in an online private school and was not permitted to know my login information. My father logged me into school daily. The online private school was asynchronous, and I did not have any real-time interaction with other students or teachers. In the summer of 2023, I turned 16. On my birthday, I left my father's residence and began walking to my mom's. It was my understanding that at age 16, I could make this choice. Rather, my father called the police, and I was stopped about 2/3 of the way to my mom's. We spent hours in a park, and in the end, I was taken back to my father's in a police car. My father had given the officers consent to use handcuffs and force if needed. I went cooperatively to avoid this. Later that summer, I was provided with an updated judgment that permitted me to have contact with my mom again. The order states that it is in my best interest to reside primarily with my mom and to have parenting time with my father in accordance with my wishes. The no contact order that was in effect for over 500 days with my mom, attendance at a reunification camp, and aftercare did not strengthen my relationship with my father. Rather, it reinforced my feelings that have been consistent for years. My father's actions and choices while I was in his sole custody for over 500 days has damaged our relationship further. As someone who has observed and personally experienced coercive control, I support its criminalization. However, the presence of parental alienation and its associated remedies needs to be adequately addressed. The providers of reunification camp and therapy for parental alienation use types of coercive control in their practice and further encourage and support the use of coercive control by the non-preferred parent. I recommend that legal representation be provided to children. While in the sole care of my father, there was not one individual that I could confide in about what was actually happening. I recommend that the court not be able to make orders that include custody reversals, no contact orders, the use of transport agents, and reunification camps and therapy. Thank you for listening to a high-level summary of my story. I will continue to advocate until change is made. This past January, I was featured in a webinar hosted by the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children. I spoke after Reem Al-Salam and prior to Suzanne Zekor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Witness 2, for your testimony. Lastly, I would welcome Ms. Dillon. You have up to 5 minutes, and can I just encourage you to move your mic just above your lip? There we go. Perfect. You have up to 5 minutes. Thank you. Try again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
I can now. You can start your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm a single mom of 4 grown children and a grandma to 7 most beautiful children in the world, grandchildren. I feel compelled to share my story in order to tear down the walls of secrecy and shame. I was 18 when I was married to a supposedly respectable man from an extremely wealthy and influential family. I had been his victim for over 15 years. My abuse didn't happen in a third world country. It happened right here in this country. From day one, he instilled in me an extreme fear. It was impossible to escape. Those who should have protected me protected him. The details are gruesome. I was subjected to all forms of abuse that turned into torture. This happened almost daily. He tried to kill me on many occasions. He hung me. He doused me with kerosene. He even tried to push me in an ocean numerous times. He forced me to drink poison. The beatings were relentless. He tied me up, kicked me, dragged me by my hair. He would leave me tied up all night, and I was forced to sleep outside many nights. As a result of his beatings, I now live with an artificial jaw after having gone through 10 multiple jaw surgeries. Pain is excruciating. I've lost all the facial nerves. All this to make it look like a suicide. to get full custody of my children. They would now become his next victims, especially my two daughters. The kids would hide under their beds and cover their eyes to avoid seeing and hearing the screams. They were afraid to go to school. They may never see me again. I want to give victims the courage to speak out, get help, and stop the cycle of abuse. Unknowingly, my abuser gave me a very public platform, and a loud voice, one that will change the misconception of domestic violence. You see, being a survivor requires great courage. I'm unmasking my story, but I refuse to be defined by the history of violence that I left behind. The abuse isn't my identity. I fought hard to acquire the skills to cope, to recover, to combat cultural labels, and to thrive as a warrior. I'm an author of 2 books, a speaker, and an educator on violence. I continue to see victims failed over and over. The punishment does not fit the crime. Domestic violence is still looked at as a private matter. There are so many abusers who live amongst us, hiding in plain sight, never publicly identified, despite abusing multiple victims over decades. This, I believe, is due to the existence of a broken system that causes victims to remain silent. To all victims of domestic violence, I hope I can give your silent sufferings the exposure it deserves. To those who have suffered and to those who are still suffering, may you be strengthened by my story. I hear you, I see you, and I believe you. For me, those harsh years of brutality are behind me now. I am free. I hope every other victim will be too. Please help me help victims become victors and make it a safer place for them and their families to live without the ongoing fear of violence. Let this talk and the gravity of it affect you and enrage you. Let's not get numb to this violence. I appeal to you to protect our vulnerable children from abusers. Question for you. What would you do if your daughter, your sister, your friend, your neighbor, co-worker is being beaten, tortured, raped, sodomized, isolated by someone who's supposed to protect you and her? That was me, my story. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. And thank you to all witnesses for your opening remarks. At this point, we will move to our first round of questions. Can all members and witnesses please be mindful of, I will be raising when there is 1 minute left, and I'll also be raising when there's 30 seconds left, as it is a short session before we go into drafting instructions. So I'd like to begin with Michelle. You have 6 minutes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Very hard to fit everything in, obviously, in 6 minutes. Just for everyone watching at home, we have a couple witnesses whose identity has been protected, obviously, for their protection. So you'll hear them referred to as Witness 1 and Witness 2. Powerful testimony on coercive control and the use of pets to Ms. Thompson. Thank you for bringing this testimony to light. It is a massive issue when we look at coercive control. Ms. Thompson, if I can start with you, you said in your testimony they protected him and not you. Can you explain who they are and how they did that?
Madam Dillon, that question was posed at you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you rephrase? Because I wasn't really.
Yes. So in your testimony of you talking about your abuse, you said that they protected him and not you. Can you explain who they are and what they did to protect him and not you?
Right. First of all, family members. They would say to me, just be quiet and do whatever he wants you to. I would be scolded. He would be praised. Secondly, the police did not protect me. They asked me, what did you do to incite the violence? What did you do to provoke it? And I found that another time a police officer just had his hands on his hips where his gun was. And I had just been threatened by a gun. And when I started to cry, he goes, well, your story doesn't fit, so we'll go. And he said, just don't waste our time.
Thank you.
And this,
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ms. Dillon. I think that helps clarify a lot of issues. Just because I have such limited time, was your abuser, your ex-husband, ever criminally charged with any type of abuse?
yes, he was.
In a facility, or did he go to jail?
He did not go to jail. He was arrested, charged with attempted threatening to kill and assault, and he avoided that. He left the country, came back, and the case was thrown out.
Thank you for that. If I can move to witness number 1 and witness number 2, thank you for your courage today in speaking about your situation and honestly bringing to light to this committee as we study the criminalization of coercive control. I think we have a unanimous sort of understanding that coercive control certainly needs to be criminalized from the majority of witnesses we've heard, but there is concern around, ensuring that the abuser isn't using it to manipulate. And what I'm finding in these testimonies is there seems to be a very strong missing link of psychiatry in analyzing in the family court system of these personality disorders, because the very terms that are supposed to be used to protect folks are then turned against them, and then they are become victims of them. Witness number 1, can you just clarify how much money you had to spend based on court order for these forced therapies? How much money do you feel that you've accumulated in this?
Thank you for the question. Prior to the reunification camp, I know it was upwards of $50,000 between the various treatments. The reunification camp was $15,000 US, so that puts us at about 70. And then the aftercare was already up to $18,000 just after 6 months. So I would, with confidence, say it's approaching around $100,000 in court-ordered therapy.
This is, it's hard not to assume that somebody is obviously profiting from these court orders. Who decides the therapist? I mean, for you to get a court order and have to go to the United States rather than in Canada when you're Canadian, who is deciding which therapists are used to help these families?
Both parties will be asked to put forth submissions of recommended therapists. What will happen is that the recommendations put forth by the preferred parent will never be accepted. And then you'll end up always going with a therapist that's been put forth by the non-preferred parent, because you were told if you are not in agreement, you are further frustrating the process. It's looked negatively upon you if you don't cooperate and go forth with a recommendation that they put. So it is a therapist that's always put forth by the non-preferred parent, and then the court makes the final order on that.
I only have 30 seconds. I have so many more questions around that. But to witness number 2, a young girl, thank you for your brave testimony. You haven't seen your brother since this court order, and I'm curious how long it has been since you've seen your brother, and if you are allowed to see him.
If you could answer that
Yes.
in about 10 seconds, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. It has been now. It has been since August 2023 that I have not seen my brother, and our order says that I am allowed to see him, but it has to be either at my father's residence or at a place agreed upon by my father. So I have not engaged in that yet, and I have not seen him since last August.
Thank you, Michelle, and all witnesses. Emanuela, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of our witnesses for the courage that you have and for bringing forward your stories. Witness 2, just a point of clarification. How old is your brother?
My brother is currently 14.
Younger than you. Okay. Now, I know that Witness 1, you spoke a little bit about the fact that there are people benefiting from this economically, and that it's often the same therapists that people are being sent to, and it's often the same judges, I guess, that are making these decisions. Can you speak a little bit more to that and explain, if you know of other people who have had a similar experience, or what makes you say this?
Thank you for the question. Yes, for sure. A review of actually the case law. There is a website called CanLII that has a public website for case law. And if you review the case law with regards to parental alienation, reunification therapy in camps, you will find consistency in the names of the therapists that have been ordered. What is really ironic is that when I'm connecting with other parents like myself, from all over Ontario, we actually have the same clinicians in our cases. So I'm in wherever I am, and then somebody 3 hours away is still the same person being utilized for the provision of this care of reunification therapy.
Do you think that might be because there are not that many, I guess, experts in this field or people in the field, or do you think that it really is done for other reasons?
I think it's done for other reasons, and they're negative ones.
Okay, thank you. Now, you said that both parents get to put forward names of people that they would like to use, and that the preferred parent is never her choice. His or her choices are never the ones that are used. But then you're saying that the same clinicians are the ones who are often getting chosen. So do you think that there's a link there? Do you think that the non-preferred parent is the one who is using, I guess, going into case law and seeing which ones are successful at this, and perhaps that might be the reason?
It gets very hard to explain. There is a subset of specific lawyers where their whole entire primary income and practice is based on the use of parental alienation. There's about a handful of lawyers in Ontario who use PA regularly, and they use the same therapist. They've been using the same therapist for over 10 years. I also don't think that there's therapists that have proven any sort of success with regards to their practice. There's no research or longitudinal studies that support that this has been successful. And the challenge is also that there is case law that supports using these therapists, using these practices. So it gains credibility and it gains strength in family court, but there is not case law that supports or demonstrate the actual reality and the devastation that occurs because of such orders.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Thompson, I have a question for you. So thank you very much for what you've shared with us today. It was a different perspective, one that we haven't heard yet. And, I'm wondering what specific things you think we should be recommending in terms of ensuring that animal abuse or any kinds of threats to animals or anything like that within a situation where there is intimate partner violence can be used, either by the courts or in a police report or whatever it might be.
Thank you for the question. First of all, just to acknowledge that the animal abuse is part of that whole spectrum of intimate partner violence. That would be the first step. And then sort of writing it in the police reports, checking on the animal, police asking about if there's any animal abuse when they are doing a domestic call-out. And then when it does go, if it does go to the courts, ensuring that those animal cruelty charges are not dropped in favor of a plea deal. because that often happens, unfortunately, especially if there's other charges on the table. So, and that requires, unfortunately, a lot of training on how to understand where animal abuse, the many facets of it, fits into that intimate partner and family violence spectrum.
Okay, so if we were to recommend something on training, whether it's training judges or whoever it is that we're going to be recommending to include animal abuse within that,
Yes.
within that training.
As a form of coercive control and in the context of intimate partner and family violence, yes.
So I see that I have less than 30 seconds. I won't bother asking another question. I want to thank you once again for all of you for being here and for hopefully we can all make a difference together through your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Emanuela. Next, we have Adriana. You have 6 minutes.
Miss.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much to the witnesses for their testimony. However, it must be for them to experience them. Thank you for sharing that testimony for this important study on coercive control. It's always striking to see how, even now in 2024, this violence carried out against women, especially in a domestic setting, is so widespread, and that we still need to call it out, to talk about it. It's difficult as a woman to accept this and to even imagine that this can be taking place. I'd like to address my first questions to Madame Dillon. Madam Dillon, in your remarks, you talked about how important training is, how important education is. You explained that your abuser was able to leave the country. I can make a link to recent developments here at Parliament and in Quebec with the Rebâtir la Confiance report, Rebuilding Trust, and the whole matter of electronic armbands when it comes to coercive control connected to techniques such as ankle bracelets. Do you think that might be of some help?
Thank you for the question. For years, I've been in every talk, every meeting with MPs, I've always brought up the need for ankle bracelets, but I have never seen anything go ahead. And I think, it is very important for us to have that for the safety of the victim, the children, and even for him as, someone who can say, I wasn't there because he was monitored. Yes, I totally agree, and I applaud you in Quebec for having that.
Merci, Madame Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Dillon. I'd like to continue my questioning. In your remarks, you very courageously talked about the physical abuse of which you were a victim. But at the beginning of your remarks, you said that from the very start there was something that you felt. Is it because when it came to blows, there had already been coercive control, something that was maybe more subtle, more manipulative, or other types of violence that preceded the actual physical abuse? So there were physical abuse, but there were other types of violence, such as coercive control.
Yes, there was. And as I said, I was 18 years old and did not know anything about, relationships. So on day one, after we got married, within hours, I was dropped off at the emergency room because he had brutally raped me and sodomized me. He was much older than me, and I believe he chose me so that he could groom me, because I was innocent. I had no idea what to expect. I had a whole range of different abuse that I went through. So physical, sexual, financial, all sorts of things, emotional, mental, and then there was cultural. I hope that answers your question.
Oui, merci, Madame Dillon. Et je vais...
Yes, thank you, Madam Dillon. I'd just like to address a blind spot, which was addressed here at committee. But I was thinking about the study that was taking the study before, and there was a bill, C-332. We talked about it even just last week in Quebec. Many articles appeared in the press to talk about this bill, which is at the Senate, to talk about criminalizing coercive behavior. Have you had the opportunity to look at that bill, or have you heard about, and if so, do you have any recommendations to improve it? Because this study that we're doing, I think, really completes or rounds out the work done around that bill. Is there something else that can be done in addition, given that the bill will be adopted and coercive behavior will be criminalized?
Yes. Unfortunately, I am not aware of the bill. My apologies. But I do want to really stress that the, intimate partner violence is taken lightly in the courts, and is, because it's domestic, I believe that it is still in a very low spectrum of being criminally charged, criminally held. And so I believe that having ankle bracelets, mandatory anger management, mandatory drinking problem, all of this, because it is the woman who is always fleeing. I think it's about time that the men, the abuser, has to leave the house instead of the victims.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Leah, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, and I just want to thank all the witnesses. Appreciating this is very difficult testimony for all of you to share. I wanted to start off with Madame Thompson. Congratulations. I first want to say about getting Bill C-332 amended to include animal abuse. You brought, this is a big issue. One of the, it's true that a lot of people who have pets consider them like family members. They don't want to leave because they're their main form of support, especially in abusive situations, right? Because you can talk to your pet, they won't say anything, right? It's their only form of support.
Yeah.
Do you agree that it's necessary for shelters to allow pets, for people fleeing violence to be able to allow their pets into shelters?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes. It should not even be an issue. And at present, only 30% of shelters in Ontario and 20% across Canada currently have the sort of facilities where they can accommodate pets in their shelters with them.
Do you think one way to, I understand that it might be difficult sometimes. Pets behave differently. We know that. We still love our pets, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think it would be productive to have, for example, a partnership between an animal shelter and a women's shelter? So if somebody is fleeing violence, they have a place to put their pet in safely. That's a coordinated effort?
Yes. Yes, and that's one of the things that Humane Canada has worked on over the past 3 years, is building sort of a safekeeping network among animal shelters, like both within our membership as well as beyond that, so that they can partner with local violence shelters and offer foster homes or accommodations for the animals so that women and children can leave safely.
And are you having to fundraise for that independently?
Oh, yes.
There's no government funding for that.
The project was funded by WAGE for 3 years, Women and Gender Equality. But since the project finished on March 31st of this year, so we've been continuing to sort of fundraise and put some of our efforts towards that.
Was your funding cut by WAGE?
No, it was just the life of the project. It was 3 years.
The life of the project.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Witness number 3. You spoke, or sorry, witness number 2. Sorry, I was thinking in third witness. Sorry, my apologies. Witness number 2. First, I want to thank you for your courage in sharing your testimony. That's very difficult to do. You spoke about family reunification camps, and we've heard a lot about these family reunification camps. And as I've done a little bit of my own reading on family reunification camps, especially in the States, I'm growing more concerned. Even with the film that you were talking about, The Brown-Eyed Blue Eyes, is not really an appropriate film to be showing kids, to be quite honest, in that situation. It just seems highly inappropriate. Do you think that we need to get rid of family reunification camps, particularly out of the country?
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be a very productive step here. Not only, I think that there should be limits placed on sending children outside of the country for these camps. There should also be bans placed on the court's ability to order children to go to ones in Canada, because this isn't just an out of Canada problem. There are ones here as well. Just the one that my brother and I went to happens to be outside of the country. But yes, I think those need to be gotten rid of for sure.
From what I've heard, it seems a bit, unreasonable. Speaking to witness number 1, I know that you had to foot the bill for reunification camps out of country. Were you given a choice at that time to, in the process, to keep your kids in Canada, or was it your only choice sending your kids to the United States?
Thank you for the question. So the non-preferred parent had recommended or requested the camp in the States. He had also requested another camp that takes place in Canada, but has oversight from an umbrella organization that is running these camps in Canada and the States. I did counter with a program out of BC that didn't involve a no contact, a custody reversal, or transport agent, but the court favored and ruled in his on his side. He did bring forth 3 witnesses from the U.S. to testify to support his narrative. Thank you.
And were you given the option to suggest your own places to send your kids when the court made that order? Were you given the choice to put people on the table as well?
Prior to the court order, so we had a 21-day trial, and during that time, I did counter with another provider of reunification in BC.
And was that provider of unification taken into consideration at that time?
They were, yes, but in the end, the judge ruled for the non-preferred parents option.
So it's not required that both parents agree on the place to send their child prior to the decision being made?
Absolutely not. The judge knew that I was I was not in agreement with a no contact order or a custody reversal. She acknowledged that during our trial and then ordered the exact opposite.
Say that is...
I'm going to have to leave it at that, Leah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Anna, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses. From what I'm hearing, this whole system is broken, and we have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to go quickly because my time is limited. I'd like to speak to Ms. Dillon. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for speaking up, not just for yourself and for your family, but also for all the other victims. I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I hope they're not too personal, but was this an arranged marriage?
Yes, it was.
You mentioned culture. Was it something in your culture that is practiced on a regular basis?
It is becoming less and less. However, when I got married, the only way to get married was through arrangements.
And you mentioned in your testimony that when you said about no one helping you and you mentioned your family, why didn't they believe you? Like, why did they not stand up for you?
I believe, once again, it was their pride, their shame. In fact, something that I speak regularly about, something that my father said that, I hope no father ever says that to his child, is after my abuser came out of, the 3-day he was arrested and put in jail for, my father said to me, "Baby girl, please go back, stay with him. I'll come and get you one day." And I said, "When, Dad?" And he said, "I'll come for your body." But because that was more honorable to him than having a daughter who's a free woman who he may consider, or the community may consider, a loose woman.
Sorry, that was hard to swallow.
Yes, can I just complete it with a few lines? I answered my dad and I said, "No, Dad, he didn't kill me. You did."
Excellent. I want to ask you something. Was your mother subject to the same treatment that you were subject to?
Not at all. Not at all.
Was it, you mentioned earlier about pride. Is it something in the family? Like, was it pride because of a financial gain to the family? Like, I don't understand. Like, being a parent, I would do anything to protect my children, and it doesn't sound like your father, to me, it sounds like your father was an abuser.
To me, my father was a man that lived for others, who in the temple, in the public eye, wanted to show that everything was perfect for him. And he also said in that same context, if you leave him, who will marry your sister? What if your married sisters are sent back home because of you? And so I had to carry the burden of my 5 sisters on my shoulders to protect them. And while all along he would break my bones, abuse and torture me.
About your children, what mental aspects has this created for them?
For my children? My children have gone through hell. In fact, I didn't see my children for almost 4 years, the older 2. And then I kidnapped them, the younger 2, and just brought them through the border into Canada. And I don't know if I should be mentioning in a government conference that. But my youngest son is in RCMP, and there are triggers. And each child of mine, including myself, we suffer from PTSD.
So I thank you for that, and I know my time is limited, and I want to ask a question to Carrie. So I want to tell you my experience. I rescued a dog from Dog Tales. This dog was a feeder dog, and I'm not sure if the audience know what a feeder dog is. To the audience, a feeder dog is a dog that is used to amplify dog fights. This dog was beaten and is, slashed and ribs broken. But I got to tell you something. I chose to adopt this dog because I felt that this dog could teach me. And I have to tell you what you said about allowing pets. Pets are crucial to survivors of war, survivors of, I know that they're used to help dying patients, the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, they use them. So I commend you for that, and I agree with the thought that we should allow them into our shelters because it helps heal the individual. This dog went through so much and yet was kind, loving, and caring. So, Carrie, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Anna.
Oh. Am I done?
Lisa, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll echo my colleagues and thank all the witnesses for your very valuable, hard to hear, but very valuable testimony today. Witness 1 and 2, we met previously, and obviously I was very moved by your testimony and thought the whole committee should hear it. Witness 1, you spoke about this already quite a bit today, but I'd like to just nail down, you called it an alienation industry. And I'm wondering if you would flush that out a bit more for us.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So I think when I'm referring to an alienation industry, I am referring to a defined set of lawyers, social workers, and psychologists who primarily benefit from the use of the parental alienation narrative in family court. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, and beyond that, it seems like you've mentioned that it's only a few players who just keep getting used by the system over and over again and getting these same verdicts, to the point where it's almost creating jurisprudence in this country, and something that may not have been an accepted term is becoming accepted just because it's being used over and over again. Is that what I understood from you?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And what it's also doing is it's reinforcing their credibility within the jurisprudence and the case law that lawyers can bring forth that in this case, this individual was utilized to provide therapy, and then they get reordered yet again. But I think I said earlier, there is no follow-up case law as to if that reunification therapy was successful and what were the actual outcomes and potentially traumatic impacts to the children, such as witness number 2.
And as far as you know, what kind of research is there to show that parental alienation is even a real thing?
There's lots of literature to support that it's not, that it is a pseudoscience. The people that promote parental alienation, though, however, will counter with different sources that they believe do support it. But I am happy to connect the committee with professors, doctors in Canada and the US who would be able to address that more wholeheartedly than myself.
And because we only have limited time, if you're able to maybe reach out to some of those experts and ask them to submit a brief directly to the committee, that would be really helpful. We don't even need them to testify, but we can use their evidence when we're coming up with the final study. And I think I heard you say that there's increasing pushback against this practice in U.S. family courts, to the extent that some of those so-called experts are coming and establishing their practices in Canada. Is that what I understood?
Yes, that is correct. The use of these remedies has been banned in 6 U.S. states, and a practitioner in California has made it publicly known on social media that she has relocated to British Columbia to provide service.
And what can we learn from the states that have already put this into their legislation?
I think that it's hard to say. A lot of the legislation is new, but I think a meaningful point for the committee today would be that I do feel that eliminating the remedies associated with PA will decrease the use of PA in court. But if coercive control is criminalized and PA is not banned, this is a little bit confusing to explain, but that instead of living through the remedies, we will be living through have a criminal record and potentially facing jail time.
So let me just see if I understand what you're saying. So you believe that if we criminalize coercive control, it will be used against the victim rather than the aggressor, unless there's also a stipulation about parental alienation.
Yes, exactly. And I'm also saying that if the remedies are banned and parental alienation is not prohibited, that instead of being a victim of the current remedies, I would have potentially been in jail and have a criminal record.
And by banning the remedies, so we've been talking sort of about banning reunification therapy or banning the ability of a judge to force a particular therapist or therapy upon a child or a complainant. Is that what you mean by banning the remedies?
Yes, sorry, I misunderstood the question. Thank you.
I don't know if I well worded the question, so it's not your fault.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
I'm sorry, I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Adrienne, you have 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For my second round of questions, I'd like to address my questions to Madam Thompson. I had a meeting before the committee meeting, and I was able to discuss with her the very importance of pets in family life. The same thing happens when there's an incident or tragedy of any sort. What does one do with the pets? And my colleague, Madame Gazan, and I talked about the small number of shelters that welcome pets, because if we criminalize coercive control, then a number of situations will be reported, and they will turn to organizations that are meant to provide support. So I'd like to take up this question of possible remedies, possible solutions. What are the possible solutions? And when it comes to pets, being with one's pet can also be a form of therapy. I've had an opportunity to discuss with a woman who talked about horse therapy. Working with horses helps helps people rebuild themselves after traumatic events in their lives. What are the kinds of solutions then that we can find? Should there be more spaces in shelters for pets? What are the types of concrete solutions that can help women who need to have the pets with them, not just the women, but the entire families? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Basically, what we would like to see is anything that keeps the women and children, the families that love the animal, together. So that reduces that trauma of separating the animal from them, which we understand is not necessarily possible at all times. Sometimes the issue is the shelters also don't have space enough for, the women and children who need their services, let alone to bring animals with them. So keeping animals and their victims together, victims and survivors together, is the most important thing for us. We could do that with, it's not an easy solution because it requires so many different things. Like we need more affordable housing, we need more, shelters that accept animals regardless of, allergies. So there has to be space for people with allergies to animals. So it's not an easy solution, and it's not going to be cheap. But it is something that needs to be recognized, especially you'd mentioned also with other tragedies like emergency situations. People don't necessarily think about the pets and the pets being left behind. But that was in Hurricane Helene just last weekend. A lot of people were being left, would not leave. So I hope that answers your question and I didn't go off on a tangent.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Dominique, vous avez 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes. Oh, sorry.
Pardon. You have 2.5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to thank you for this. I mean, people often don't think about these things in terms of really giving people options to leave. So I have a question. A lot of animals are given status as emotional support dogs. For example, and it's very common. So my question is, for a person fleeing violence, should they end up as a shelter, do you think there should be a way to license that animal to become an emotional support animal for the victim?
That would be one idea to do that. The problem with the emotional support animal is there's no licensing standards for it. It's only for service animals. So there would have to be a whole other sort of standard and regulations and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't say no to that, because that's technically what their role is with any victims of violence, is they're supporting.
Yeah, I ask that because very often when somebody's fleeing violence, it's a very vulnerable time. And that animal, to have that animal with them, comforting them all the time, do you think it would make the process a bit easier for that individual?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. My last question, and I have limited time, I just wanted to thank you, Madame Dillon, for your testimony. One of the things you spoke a little about your family. One of the things that we've spoken about a lot in FIWO is the importance of having places for women that serve diverse communities, for example, and specialize in different areas. For example, in my riding, there was a movement to open a shelter for women of the Muslim faith, for example. So that, do you think that would have helped in your situation to go to a place where people understood maybe some of the cultural norms that you came from and spoke about, including arranged marriage? Would that have made it easier for you, so you didn't have to explain so much?
Yeah, that's really, really a good suggestion. In fact, just probably 10 years ago, PEC's Progressive Intercultural Network in Surrey opened a shelter for the South Asian women, which helps a lot because, they understand the culture, they understand the language, they understand the whole dynamics, surrounding arranged marriages. And, especially when the language is a barrier. So I think that really is very supportive to the victim.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Leah. It won't happen again. Dominique, you have 5 minutes.
Ce n'était pas de ma faute, Leah.
I'm not to blame. Thank you to our witnesses this morning. Thank you for showing so much courage and being with us this morning. What you described is really upsetting. Let's be clear about this. This was just unacceptable levels of violence. Witness number 2 is just 17 years old. To hear her, it's just unacceptable. She has a young brother who's even younger than her and even more vulnerable than her. My first question is addressed to Madame Dillon. Madame Dillon, we did some research on you, and you mentioned this in your opening statement, that you're heavily involved in education. You really give yourself to this. You're involved in awareness-raising efforts. Among whom do you raise awareness, and what are the main messages that you seek to convey to them? What is the content of this awareness-raising? Because for those who haven't received the memo, and especially the court, who are the people you speak with? You give talks. Who do you work with, and what is the main message you give to them, and what are the results of that work you do?
Yes, thank you for the question. I speak to a broad range of agencies. I'll start with the police. I regularly speak at the Justice Institute of British Columbia for the training of new police recruits, municipal policing. And I, first of all, tell them how to approach a victim, how to talk to a victim, and the body language, and how not to stand in front of them, and to give them space. I show them my injuries. I show them pictures through slides. And I, first of all, ask them, if it was that bad, why didn't you just leave? And this is a question we've been asked. So many of us victims have been asked. And, my approach to that question is, so you believe it wasn't that bad? The violence, no matter if it's hidden, there are no signs such as sexual, such as emotional, threatening, and all of that. There's still abuse, and they still cause a lot of harm. So in every situation, take us seriously. Don't give up on us. And I also speak to different agencies and a lot to First Nations communities and schools.
Madame Dillon.
Madam Dillon, narcissistic, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm certainly not a doctor either. But we've seen such people. We've learned to recognize these people. I'm not sure if this is the case among law enforcement officers, but you can't blame a woman who is a victim of such narcissistic people, such abusers and manipulators. Getting out of such a situation is very difficult. Thank you for your testimony. I really encourage you to continue your work, and working with such people is of the utmost importance. Just, I don't have much time left, but perhaps one last question. What services should you have received and would you have liked to receive as a victim? Did you receive any services? And were they commensurate with what you were expecting? Is that what you were expecting and that you would have liked to receive?
Thank you. I'm no, psychiatrist either. However, I did not receive any sort of counseling. I did not receive any support, neither did my children at the time. And I stress, even to this day, I wish that I could go and speak to a counselor, a therapist, and just whatever is still in there, the pain that I carry, I wish that I could unburden it now.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Dillon.
Thank you very much, Madam Dillon.
Thank you, Dominique. Sonia, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, all the witnesses, for your courage once again. I would like to start my question to Ms. Dillon. Mr. Dillon, you spent a fair amount of time advocating for education. So if we can talk about the education for children and youth on coercive control, we all know that many vulnerable young people may not have examples to follow and may not be aware of what coercive control is. So are you aware of any provincial programs that already exist in Canada or school district implementing them?
There was one that in British Columbia, I forget what it was called because it was a number of years ago, but in all honesty, no, unless there's a guest speaker. When I go to high schools, I speak on schoolyard bullying. I speak on dating violence, and I speak to both girls and boys and tell them to recognize a controlling behavior. What does that look like? When, say, your boyfriend keeps calling you, keeps checking up on you, doesn't want you to have other friends, takes you away from your family. These are some of the examples, but I have a whole list. These are some of the things that they need to look out for. Oh, he doesn't, just love you and care for you. That's why he's calling you 100 times a day. No. Now he's controlling you. He wants to know your movements.
Thank you. My next question, you talked about combat culture aspect. Mm-hmm. So I know that we have a Safe Center Peel where they can get more help, like with many organizations in one place, like the children help and grocery help and legal help. Job finding help. So, do you think, a one-stop shop or where you can get help on one spot? Because you talked about language barriers, you talked about people don't know what is their rights are, what there's a legal protection are. So, what do you think, that kind of services can help the women who don't know their rights are?
Yeah, that's a great idea. However, when a woman is fleeing abuse, her first thing is safety and trying to ground herself. So she needs support in legal services. She needs support getting custody. She needs support in, say, housing and in counseling. So I think, finding a job sort of comes way down. But yeah, that would be very helpful. So transition houses, I've worked in one for many, many years. The job for that immediate place for the shelter is the safety of the woman and the children.
My next question is to witness number one. Thank you for sharing your heartbreaking testimony about the reunification camp therapy. What was the rationale from the judge for recommending this therapy to U.S.? Not you said that even though parents are recommending the therapist, and the judge is not saying, not admitting that. So can you say what is the rationale from the judge to recommending this therapy in United States?
Thank you for the question. It's a hard one to answer, to be honest. The non-preferred parent, like I said, did put forth a reunification camp in Canada as well as the one in the States. The provider of the one in the States was called as a witness to testify, and there were 2 other American witnesses that were called to testify as well, as a way to, I guess, convince the judge that this would be a positive solution and the right choice.
I just want to follow up at this question. Therapists are regulated by provinces and territories. For example, in Ontario, it is the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario. Are you aware if their provincial professional colleges are taking steps to stop the use of reunification therapy? And are you aware of the work done in provinces such as Ontario to regulate this?
Thank you. I did reach out to the Ontario College of Social Workers to let them know that I was experiencing this. The individual from the U.S. providing the therapy was indeed not regulated with the Ontario College of Social Workers to provide telepractice or in-person therapy to our children. The Ontario College of Social Workers did provide a letter that asked me to give that to the judge in my case, the opposing counsel, the service provider herself, but that didn't carry any weight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our panel for today. On behalf of the entire committee, I would like to thank all of the witnesses for their appearance. This also concludes our witness testimony for the study of coercive behavior. Thank you to everyone who has contributed to this very disturbing but important study. At this point, we will be excusing our witnesses and suspending for 5 to 10 minutes while we go into camera. you.